The hum of jet engines filled the crisp morning air as a sleek, black Gulfstream G700 sat gleaming under the sun at Los Angeles International Airport. The private jet's polished exterior reflected the soft hues of dawn, an unspoken symbol of wealth and exclusivity. It was the kind of aircraft that only the elite of the elite could afford to fly in. Inside the luxury terminal, a young flight attendant, Claire Mitchell, adjusted her uniform, checked her reflection in a glass panel, and took a deep breath. Today was her first time working on a private jet charter, and she had been briefed about the importance of professionalism. Private aviation wasn't like commercial airlines. Here, the passengers weren't just customers. They were billionaires, executives, or A-list celebrities. She had to be perfect. Claire's manager had given her strict instructions. Be firm, be professional. Do not tolerate any nonsense from difficult passengers. And most importantly, never assume someone is important just because they look like they are. As she stepped onto the jet, she made a mental note to follow every rule. She was here to serve with efficiency, not fawn over VIPs. Just then, a man walked up the aircraft steps, dressed in a plain black hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. His hands were tucked into his pockets, and he wore a simple cap pulled low over his face. He didn't have the typical billionaire demeanor. No tailored suit, no Rolex, no air of arrogance. In fact, if anything, he looked like an ordinary guy who had mistakenly wandered onto the wrong jet. Claire straightened her posture as he stepped inside. She glanced at the passenger manifest in her hand. No name stood out, just initials. She furrowed her brow, then turned to him with a polite but firm expression. Sir, this is a private charter. You might be on the wrong jet. The man paused, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. He casually glanced around the cabin, the hand-stitched Italian leather seats, the gold accents, and the state-of-the-art entertainment system. His fingers ran over the edge of a mahogany-finished table, and he nodded slightly, as if admiring his own taste. Then he looked back at Claire, his expression unreadable. I think I'm on the right jet. Claire exhaled sharply. She had dealt with overconfident passengers before. There was always someone who thought they could charm their way onto a flight they didn't belong on. I'm sorry, sir, she said, maintaining her professional tone. But I need to see a boarding pass or confirmation before I can allow you to stay on board. The man chuckled under his breath and pulled out his phone, scrolling casually, as if he had all the time in the world. Claire clenched her jaw. This was not how things worked in private aviation. Sir, I need you to step off the aircraft if you don't have clearance. For a brief moment he locked eyes with her, his expression calm, almost amused. Then, with a casual shrug, he took a seat in one of the plush leather chairs and propped his feet up on the footrest. Claire's patience snapped. Sir, I won't ask again. This jet is booked for a VIP. If you don't leave, I'll have to call security. The man tilted his head slightly, as if considering something. Then he spoke two simple words that would turn her entire world upside down. I own it. Claire's breath hitched. Her heart pounded. What? She stared at him, a mixture of shock, doubt, and disbelief swirling in her chest. This ordinary-looking man owned the jet? Who was he? Claire's entire body tensed. Did she hear that correctly? You own this jet? She repeated, her voice edged with skepticism. The man, still seated with an annoyingly calm demeanor, nodded, adjusting his cap slightly. Yeah. Claire narrowed her eyes. She had seen her fair share of self-important passengers trying to act like they ran the place. But this guy? He looked too normal. No security entourage, no assistant, no diamond-studded watch. Private jet owners didn't dress like this. She studied him again. The slightly mischievous smirk, the way he carried himself, confident but relaxed. It was as if he was waiting for her to figure something out. But she didn't. Instead, she squared her shoulders and kept her voice firm. Sir, unless your name is on the flight manifest, I cannot allow you to stay on board. I'll have to ask you to leave. The man let out a short chuckle, shaking his head. Okay, he said, standing up. How about we clear this up? Before Claire could respond, the co-pilot, Captain Ross, entered the cabin. He barely made it 2 steps before his eyes landed on the man. Instant recognition flashed across his face. Oh, Mr. Cruz. I wasn't expecting you so early, sir. Claire froze. Mr. Cruz? Her heart skipped a beat as a slow, horrifying realization crept in. She whipped her head back toward the man. The jawline. The smirk. The eyes. Oh, my God. She felt her stomach drop to the floor. She had just kicked Tom Cruise off his own private jet. Heat rushed to her face so fast she thought she might faint. This wasn't just any celebrity. Tom Cruise was Hollywood royalty, a living legend, and the owner of multiple private aircraft. And she had treated him like a clueless trespasser. Claire stammered, her brain scrambling for damage control. Tom, however, seemed to be thoroughly enjoying this. He leaned against the seat with a lopsided grin, watching her struggle. The amusement in his eyes was unmistakable. Captain Ross, noticing the awkward tension, chuckled. Claire, I take it you haven't met our boss yet? Boss. The weight of the word hit her like a freight train. Oh no. Tom owned the entire jet charter company. Claire's legs wobbled as she tried to process the catastrophe unfolding before her. She had just scolded her employer. In less than 5 minutes, she might be out of a job. Tom, sensing her panic, finally decided to put her out of her misery. Relax, he said, laughing softly. I like people who follow the rules. Claire swallowed hard. Was that a good sign? Or the beginning of a very long, humiliating day? One thing was clear. This flight was going to be unforgettable. Claire could feel her pulse pounding in her ears. The silence in the cabin stretched as she stood there, her mouth slightly open, her brain scrambling for damage control. She had just ordered Tom Cruise off his own private jet. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to fix this fast. But before she could say another word, the captain chuckled again. She's new, Captain Ross said, clapping Tom on the back as if they were old friends. Still learning the ropes. Tom nodded, his eyes twinkling with amusement. I can see that. Claire swallowed hard. This was bad. She had worked so hard to land this job, and now, within the first hour, she had just insulted the owner of the fleet. Her dream career might be over before it even started. But instead of looking irritated, Tom just sighed theatrically and stretched out his arms. Well, he said casually, since I apparently need clearance to fly my own jet, should I go back and get a permission slip? Claire felt the heat rush to her face again. He was teasing her, but there was no hostility in his voice, just pure mischief. She finally found her voice. I'm so sorry, Mr. Cruz. She straightened her posture. I was just following protocol. Tom waved a hand dismissively. Call me Tom. She hesitated, then nodded. Tom. Captain Ross gave Claire a reassuring look before heading toward the cockpit, leaving her alone with one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Tom, still standing, tilted his head slightly. You're Claire, right? Her eyes widened. He remembered her name? Yes, sir. Yes, Tom. He grinned. Tell me, Claire, how long have you been working private flights? She felt a lump in her throat. Should she lie? Pretend she had years of experience? No, he would see right through that. This is my first private flight, she admitted. Tom raised an eyebrow, his grin widening. No kidding. First day. And you already tried to throw me off my own jet? Impressive. Claire wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Before she could reply, a sudden burst of laughter erupted from the cabin entrance. Another passenger had just stepped aboard. A tall, sharply dressed man with salt and pepper hair, and a designer watch that probably costs more than her annual salary. Oh, this I gotta hear, the man said, still laughing as he approached. What happened? Tom turned to him, his smirk never fading. Oh, just a minor case of mistaken identity. Claire here thought I was trying to steal a seat on my own jet. The man barked out another laugh, and extended a hand to Claire. Hi, I'm Jerry Goldstein, Tom's lawyer and sometimes babysitter. Claire forced a nervous smile as she shook his hand. Don't feel too bad, Jerry said. Tom loves messing with people. He once walked into his own movie premiere in a janitor's uniform, just to see how long it would take before security tried to kick him out. Tom chuckled. 17 minutes. Claire blinked. What kind of billionaire just did things like that? She was still trying to mentally reset when another flight attendant, Lisa, stepped aboard, balancing a tray of refreshments. Her eyes widened when she saw Tom. Oh, Mr. Cruz. Welcome back, sir, she said, beaming. Claire bit the inside of her cheek. Of course. Lisa had been working these flights for years. She knew all the regulars. Lisa glanced at Claire, then back at Tom, as if sensing something had happened. Is everything okay? She asked. Tom grinned mischievously. Oh, everything's great. Claire here just made sure I had proper clearance to board my own plane. Lisa's eyes went wide as saucers, darting to Claire in sheer panic. Oh my God, she whispered under her breath. Claire wanted to crawl into a luggage compartment and never come out. Tom, sensing her discomfort, finally decided to stop toying with her. He sat down in his seat, leaning back comfortably. All right, Claire, he said, his voice suddenly more serious. You're new, right? You want to learn how to handle private aviation. She hesitated. Was this a trick question? Yes. Tom nodded approvingly. Good. Because this flight is about to get a whole lot more interesting. Before Claire could ask what he meant, the cockpit radio crackled to life. A voice came through, urgent and sharp. LAX tower to Gulfstream 712. We have an incoming emergency alert. You need to hold position on the tarmac immediately. Claire snapped her head toward the cockpit. Lisa's face went pale. What's happening? Tom's relaxed expression finally hardened. Captain Ross's voice echoed through the intercom. We have a problem. Claire's stomach tightened at the sound of the captain's voice. We have a problem. Lisa immediately placed the tray of refreshments down, her usually calm demeanor stiffening. Claire's heart pounded. An emergency alert? On a private flight? She glanced at Tom. To her surprise, he looked completely unfazed. If anything, he looked focused, serious, but not panicked. The cockpit door swung open, and Captain Ross stepped out, his face tight. We're grounded for now. There's been a security breach at LAX. Unidentified personnel were spotted near the private terminals, and airport authorities are locking everything down. Lisa's eyes widened. A security breach? Claire felt a shiver run down her spine. She had worked commercial flights before, and security breaches were never a good sign. Tom leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Are we in any immediate danger? Ross hesitated for a moment before shaking his head. Not that we know of. But they're running a full security sweep before clearing any departures. Jerry, who had been casually sipping from a glass of water, sighed heavily. Great. We're going to be stuck here for hours. Tom, however, seemed more concerned about something else. He turned to Ross. What exactly do they mean by unidentified personnel? Ross exhaled through his nose. That's the vague part. TSA hasn't given details, but apparently, someone was seen in restricted areas without clearance. They disappeared before security could detain them. Claire's skin prickled. That didn't sound like an accident. Do they think it's a threat? She asked before she could stop herself. Ross hesitated. They aren't ruling it out. The air in the cabin grew heavy. Even Lisa, usually confident and composed, looked unsettled. Tom sat back in his chair, drumming his fingers against the armrest thoughtfully. Claire studied him. He wasn't scared. He was analyzing, calculating. Who the hell was this guy? She had spent years believing celebrities were just actors living in a different reality. But Tom Cruise? He was built differently. The man looked like he was ready to take over the cockpit if needed. Jerry groaned, rubbing his temples. Well, I hope they clear us soon. I've got a legal meeting in New York that I'd rather not miss. Tom smirked slightly. You always have a legal meeting, Jerry. Jerry rolled his eyes. Yeah, and you always have a life or death mission. But you don't see me questioning that. Claire's mind was racing. A security breach at LAX was serious. Shouldn't they be moving to a safer location? Lisa must have sensed her thoughts because she turned to Ross. Should we deplane? Wouldn't that be safer? Ross shook his head. Right now the safest place is inside the jet. No one unauthorized can board. Tom tapped the table in front of him. Unless, of course, that unidentified person was trying to board a private jet in the first place. The thought made Claire's blood run cold. Ross sighed. That's what we're waiting to find out. Lisa sat down, exhaling sharply. God, what a day. Claire still couldn't shake the unease curling in her chest. Something felt off. Then, just as she was about to return to her seat, Tom's phone buzzed loudly on the table. He picked it up, glanced at the screen, and his expression changed instantly. Claire knew that look. She had seen it in her father's face whenever bad news hit the family. Something was wrong. Tom slowly stood up, his jaw tightening. "Ross, can I speak to you for a minute?" Ross nodded and followed Tom toward the cockpit. Jerry and Lisa exchanged confused glances, but no one spoke. Claire sat frozen. Something wasn't adding up. She was still processing everything when, a few moments later, Tom stepped back into the cabin, his expression unreadable. "Change of plans," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We're getting off the jet." Claire blinked. "What?" Lisa's head snapped up. "But you just said we were safer here." Tom didn't let her finish. "We were." He turned to Ross. "But I just got confirmation that the security breach involves someone looking for me." Claire's breath hitched. Lisa stiffened. "Wait, what?" Jerry's mouth fell open. "What do you mean looking for you?" Tom's voice was sharp. "I mean, whoever got past security at LAX isn't just a random trespasser. They're here because of me." Silence crashed over the cabin. Claire's hands gripped the seat rest. What did that even mean? Was he being targeted? Stalked? Was someone trying to get onto his jet? Before anyone could process the shock, Ross's radio blared to life again. "Gulfstream 712, emergency update. The intruder has been sighted near Hangar 4. They appear to be armed. All personnel are advised to shelter in place or evacuate immediately." Lisa gasped. Jerry muttered a curse under his breath. Claire's heart pounded. This wasn't just an airport delay anymore. They were in real danger. Tom's expression remained eerily calm, but his voice left no room for argument. "Everyone get your stuff. We're leaving. Now." The tension in the cabin was thick enough to cut with a knife. Claire's hands were clammy as she processed what was happening. An armed intruder was near the private jet terminals, and now Tom Cruise, the man she had just scolded moments ago, was saying the trespasser was here for him. Lisa's voice trembled. "Wait, you're saying we're being targeted?" Tom didn't hesitate. "I'm saying we're not waiting around to find out." Captain Ross was already moving, checking the main cabin door. "TSA wants people to shelter in place, but if we stay here, we're sitting ducks. We need a plan." Tom pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "I've already got one." Claire exchanged a nervous glance with Lisa as Tom walked to the front of the cabin, speaking in low, clipped tones into the phone. His posture was completely different now. No longer the playful, teasing movie star, but a man who had been in high-stakes situations before. Jerry, pacing near the window, cursed under his breath. "Of course, this happens on a day I have court filings due." Lisa shot him a glare. "Seriously, Jerry?" Jerry held up his hands. "Hey, I'm just saying, we're rich people stuck in a lockdown airport with an armed intruder. This is like the beginning of a really bad movie." Claire's stomach twisted. Except this wasn't a movie. This was real. Tom ended his call and turned back to them. "My security team is en route. But we need to move now. If we wait for TSA to clear the area, we're stuck here indefinitely." Ross crossed his arms. "All right, Tom. What's the play?" Tom nodded toward the rear exit. "There's a service stairwell that leads down to a private access road behind the hangars. If we move now, we can take one of my transport cars and get out before things escalate." Lisa blinked. "Wait, you have transport cars parked at the airport?" Tom gave her a half smile. "Lisa, I plan for everything." Claire could believe that. Jerry sighed and grabbed his briefcase. "Fine, but if I die today, I want it known that I didn't sign up for this." Tom smirked. "Duly noted, Jerry." Ross cracked open the service door at the rear of the cabin. The stairwell was dimly lit but clear. "Coast looks good," he muttered. "Let's move." Lisa went first, followed by Jerry, then Claire. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, Claire could hear distant sirens wailing through the airport tarmac. Tom was the last to step down, but before he closed the door he paused. His head tilted slightly, listening. Claire's heart skipped a beat. "What?" she whispered. Tom's eyes narrowed. "Someone's coming." Her pulse spiked. They had to move. Now. Ross took the lead, guiding them down the narrow access corridor. It was eerily silent, save for the occasional hum of security radios in the distance. Then suddenly, a voice rang out. "Hey, stop right there." Claire's breath caught in her throat. A security officer stood at the end of the corridor, flashlight aimed at them. His hand was near his holster. He thought they were the intruders. Ross instantly raised his hands. "We're authorized personnel. We were advised to evacuate." The officer wasn't convinced. He took a cautious step forward. "I need you all to stay put until we sort this out." Tom stepped forward calmly, his hands open in a non-threatening gesture. "Officer, listen. I appreciate what you're doing, but we're not your problem. The real threat is still out there. And I don't think you want us standing out here in the open while you handle it." Claire held her breath. Tom wasn't being aggressive, but he had a way of making people listen. The officer hesitated, eyes flickering between them. Then, a loud metal clang echoed behind them. Claire's stomach dropped. Someone else was in the corridor. The officer instantly turned toward the noise, his hand fully gripping his gun now. Tom didn't waste a second. "Go. Now." Ross yanked open the next exit door, and they burst into the open air behind the hangar. Claire's lungs burned as they ran toward a black SUV parked near a security fence. Tom pulled out a key fob and clicked it. The lights flashed. Of course, he had a getaway car waiting. Lisa scrambled into the front seat, while Claire and Jerry dove into the back. Tom slammed the driver's door shut, just as Ross jumped into the passenger seat. Then gunshots. Not at them, but somewhere back toward the terminals. Claire whipped her head around, her breath shallow. Ross barked, "Drive, drive, drive." Tom didn't hesitate. He threw the SUV into gear and floored it. The tires screeched as they peeled away from the private hangar, heading toward the emergency exit gate. Claire twisted in her seat. Her heartbeat was out of control. Somewhere back there, an armed man was looking for Tom Cruise. And she had no idea why. The black SUV sped through the restricted access road, the tires kicking up dust as Tom navigated sharp turns with expert precision. The gunshots in the distance had stopped, but the tension in the car was suffocating. Claire's hands gripped her seatbelt so tightly that her knuckles turned white. "Who the hell was that?" Jerry finally burst out. "Why would someone be after you, Tom?" Tom's jaw was tight, eyes locked on the road. "It's complicated." Not an answer. Lisa, still in shock, turned to Ross. "Where's security? Shouldn't they be handling this?" Ross exhaled sharply. "They're securing the terminals, but that means we're on our own until they lock this guy down." Tom glanced at Claire through the rearview mirror. "You okay back there?" Claire swallowed hard. She had signed up to serve cocktails and luxury meals, not to be in a high-speed escape with an A-list action star. "Define okay," she muttered. Tom smirked slightly but kept his focus ahead. As they approached the perimeter security gate, the checkpoint arm was still down. A single security officer stood at the booth, looking confused. Ross rolled down his window. "Open the gate." The officer hesitated. "Sir, I need clearance before." Bang. A loud crash sounded from behind them. Claire's head snapped back. A second SUV had appeared in the rearview mirror. Black. Tinted windows. Unmarked. It was following them. Lisa's breath hitched. "Tom." Tom tightened his grip on the wheel. "Yeah, I see it." Claire's heart thundered. This was real. Someone was following them. Someone who didn't want Tom leaving the airport. Ross yelled at the security officer again. "Open the gate. Now." The officer, clearly rattled, pressed the button, and the gate arm slowly lifted. Too slowly. The black SUV behind them was speeding up. Lisa grabbed Claire's arm, her nails digging in. "They're not stopping." Tom made a split-second decision. He floored it. The SUV roared forward, barely making it under the rising gate behind them. The pursuing SUV wasn't so lucky. The security gate slammed down onto its hood, cracking the windshield. The driver hit the brakes hard, skidding sideways. Lisa gasped. "Oh my God." Tom exhaled but didn't slow down. They were free. Jerry let out a strangled laugh, still gripping his briefcase like it was a lifeline. "Holy hell. I need a drink." Tom chuckled, but didn't take his eyes off the road. "Get in line." Claire leaned back against the seat, trying to process everything. What had just happened? Who was that? And why did she have a feeling this wasn't over? The tension in the SUV was still palpable, but the immediate danger was over. Tom drove them out of the airport perimeter, taking a private access road leading away from the chaos. Claire forced herself to breathe, her chest rising and falling as the adrenaline started wearing off. Lisa was still gripping the dashboard, eyes darting to the side mirrors every few seconds. Jerry, ever the cynic, finally exhaled and rubbed his temples. Okay, now can someone tell me what the hell just happened? Ross, in the passenger seat, was already on his phone, checking for updates. Tom, his grip relaxed slightly on the steering wheel, took a long breath before speaking. It was a security breach, yeah. But this wasn't random. Claire swallowed, turning toward him. You said they were after you. Why? Tom tapped his fingers against the wheel, debating how much to say. Finally he sighed. Let's just say, when you spend years in the spotlight, you attract all kinds of attention. Some good, some not so much. Lisa stared at him. You mean a stalker? Tom gave a small nod. Looks like it. A heavy silence settled over the car. Claire felt her stomach drop. A stalker had broken into one of the most secure airports in the country just to get close to Tom? And they had been caught in the middle of it. Jerry scoffed. Man, I don't get paid enough for this. Tom shot him a smirk. You get paid millions. Jerry shrugged. Yeah, and I still don't get paid enough. Ross finally spoke up. TSA's sweeping the area. The guy who breached security is in custody. He glanced at Tom. They think he was trying to board your jet. Lisa shivered. That's disturbing. Tom nodded, but he didn't seem surprised. If anything, he looked more tired than anything else. Claire shifted in her seat. She had completely misjudged him. For years, she had thought of celebrities as people who lived in luxury, pampered and worshipped by the public. She had assumed Tom Cruise was just another powerful man used to getting his way. But today had shattered those ideas. She had seen firsthand the dangers that came with fame. The way Tom stayed calm under pressure, taking charge when things went south. He wasn't just some privileged actor. He was someone who had learned how to survive in a world that never let him rest. And here she was, scolding him like he was some lost passenger just hours ago. Lisa let out a deep sigh. So what now? Tom slowed the car as they approached a private compound outside the airport, where several black SUVs were parked. His security team. We regroup, Tom said simply. Claire turned to him. Are you okay? Tom raised an eyebrow. I should be asking you that. Claire scoffed, shaking her head. I'm just a flight attendant. I wasn't the one being hunted today. Tom studied her for a moment, then smiled slightly. You're more than just a flight attendant. Most people would have freaked out back there. She hesitated, feeling a flicker of something unfamiliar. Respect? Admiration? I still can't believe I tried to kick you off your own jet. Tom laughed, shaking his head. That was the best part of my day. Lisa groaned. He's never going to let you live that down. Claire covered her face with her hands. Great. Ross opened his door as the SUV rolled to a stop in the compound. Security personnel in suits immediately approached the vehicle. One of them, a tall man with an earpiece, nodded at Tom. We have everything under control, sir. The intruder is in custody, and TSA will send a full report soon. Tom stepped out of the car, stretching. Thanks, Ethan. The rest of them followed, taking a moment to breathe in the fresh air after the chaos of the past hour. Claire watched as Tom exchanged a few quiet words with his security team. She had to admit, he was different from what she expected. He wasn't demanding or arrogant. He wasn't yelling at anyone. If anything, he was making sure everyone else was okay, before worrying about himself. Lisa nudged Claire, smirking. Not what you imagined when you signed up for this job, huh? Claire let out a breathless laugh. Not even close. Jerry clapped a hand on Tom's shoulder. All right, boss. Now that no one is trying to kill you, can we get back to business? I have contracts to review. Tom smirked. Of course. Business first. Then he turned to Claire, his eyes twinkling. But first you owe me a drink. Claire blinked. Excuse me? Tom grinned. You're new to private aviation, right? Well, first lesson. When you accidentally try to kick your boss off his own plane, you buy him a drink. Lisa burst out laughing. Jerry snorted. Claire groaned, but a smile tugged at her lips. She'd never live this down, would she? But maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe today wasn't the disaster she thought it was. Maybe, just maybe, it was the start of something unforgettable. Claire sighed dramatically, shaking her head. Fine. One drink. But I picked the place. Tom raised an eyebrow. Deal. Lisa leaned in grinning. Better choose wisely. If you take Tom Cruise to some rundown bar, it's going to be all over the internet tomorrow. Claire groaned. Great. No pressure. But as they stood outside under the warm California sun, the tension from earlier slowly faded. The chaos at the airport, the security breach, the near escape. It was still fresh in their minds, but at least now they could breathe. Jerry checked his watch. All right, fun as this has been, I need to make some calls. And maybe see a therapist. He shot Tom a look. Next time, can we do a normal flight? Without gunmen? Tom smirked. Where's the fun in that? Jerry muttered something under his breath and headed toward his own car, already dialing a number on his phone. Ross gave Tom a nod. I'll get the final security reports from TSA and send them over. Lisa stretched, turning to Claire. So, still want to work in private aviation? Claire hesitated, thinking about everything that had happened. She had dreamed of this job for years, imagining herself serving wealthy executives, celebrities, and royalty. But never in her wildest imagination had she pictured dodging a potential stalker, speeding away from a security breach, and making an absolute fool of herself in front of one of Hollywood's biggest legends. But as crazy as today was, something inside her thrilled at the experience. The unpredictability, the challenge, the fact that she had held her own in a moment of pure chaos. She looked at Tom, who was now leaning against the SUV, watching her with an amused expression. Maybe this was exactly where she was meant to be. She smiled. Yeah, I think I do. Tom nodded, as if he had known the answer all along. Good. As Claire and Lisa prepared to head back inside the building, Tom called out to her one last time. Hey Claire. She turned, raising an eyebrow. Yeah. His signature smirk returned. Next time you see a guy in a hoodie and sneakers getting on a private jet, maybe don't assume he doesn't belong there. Lisa burst out laughing. Claire rolled her eyes, but she couldn't fight the grin creeping onto her face. Noted. As she walked away, she realized something surprising. What started as her worst first day ever had somehow turned into the most unforgettable lesson of her career. And somehow, she had earned the respect of Tom Cruise himself. Not bad for a newbie. The end.